But take the incomprehensibility of the universe and possibly multiverse. So we would both agree it's incomprehensible to your cat, right?
It's incomprehensible.
To your cat or to the local raccoon.
Yes, but everything is incomprehensible to a cat.
I don't think that's true. No, dogs understand human social
They
life
do
pretty
not.
well.
Dogs have genes which contain knowledge, but it is fixed knowledge, and it is not the kind of knowledge that constitutes understanding. Understanding is always explanatory. So, you can write a book on canine behavior and look in chapter 37, and it will tell you what a dog will do when such and such happens to it. And sometimes it will say, some dogs will do this, some dogs will do that. There is no such book for humans, because chapter 37 will be blank. It'll say humans are going to do something that neither we nor you can predict.
I feel I can predict humans better than cats often. But do chimpanzees understand, in your view?
No one knows. They show virtually no sign of understanding anything. There are some really nice experiments on wild gorillas by Richard Byrne, who's both a theoretical and very practical animal behavior expert. And he was wondering how gorillas transmit their memes, that is, their culturally inherited behaviors, from one gorilla to another. So one thing is, the first answer is very slowly. It takes absolutely ages, months and months, for a gorilla to be able to copy another gorilla's behavior well enough to do something complicated. I mean, they can copy, wave hand and that sort of thing, but to copy a complex behavior like required to open a difficult kind of nut, which no other animal can open. This is why they have memes, because that's a very useful ability. It takes them a long time. And then he did some ingenious experiments, or rather observations. He didn't interfere with the gorillas. He did some observations to try to determine whether they understand why they are doing each particular action. And, it involves, I don't know what it involves, grabbing with both hands and twisting in one way and then pulling another way and so on. Apparently, these gorillas are prone to a certain injury which disables their thumb. And so they can't move their thumb, which is quite disabling for them, just as it is for us. And the thing is, when you've disabled your thumb, one of these motions becomes irrelevant, and the others become less effective. But the gorillas which have learnt how to do the thing will make the motion, the ineffective motion, again and again every single time. And he explains this better than I do. But
that's like human beings borrowing at high interest rates, right? They'll do that many times
it's
in a row.
It's not just like it. You might like to draw analogies, but it's not the same thing. When a human being repeats a behavior that another human being thinks is unwise or counterproductive or will not achieve its purpose, and you ask them or you show them, they will have an explanation which you might not like. It may be stupid, but the ape perfectly well wants this thing to work, but doesn't know why it is doing the actions. It's a thing that's very hard to take on board, because we are used to intentional behavior, and we're not used to the overt behavior of humans being unintentional. Humans have have tend to explain themselves even irrationally, and they act according to their explanation. Whereas there's no evidence that any other animals have those explanations. There's also the case of squirrels, which is in a way even more amazing. You know, squirrels bury nuts and so that they can dig them up later. Well, some people did a very cruel experiment. They put a squirrel, given some nuts or something, I don't know how they set up the experiment, on a concrete floor, and the squirrel did exactly the same behavior with its hind legs, with the nuts. They'd put the nuts there and so on, even though it was having no effect whatsoever. So we see the point of scrabbling with your hind legs and then nudging the nuts over there and so on, but it doesn't. It's just a program being enacted by its genes.
But what is the underlying physical assumption that makes humans different in having explanatory power? One would expect it to be a continuum if you're an atheist, right? So what break occurs at some stage in evolution? That's a discrete break, or why aren't we just back to it being a continuum?
So I don't think it can have been a discrete break, because evolution would have happened gradually. My best guess, we don't know this. We have very little. Actually, we have very little knowledge about the prehistory of ideas, because there's no evidence of it. All we see is the stone tools. We don't even see the wooden tools because they've decayed away. But I think what happened is that the capacity of the brain to store memes, to store programs in the brain rather than in the genes, increased for some reason very fast, because for some reason these memes were very valuable. We know that the gorilla memes are very valuable because they allow them to gain knowledge of things like how to open nuts and so on, which no other animal in their environment has. And so that gives them access to food that no other animal has. Now, so the capacity for memes increased rapidly, and there's very little. Now, sorry, I left out a step. Once memes get beyond a certain complexity, they cannot be copied. You can't. We don't have the ability to download a program from another person's brain. All we can do is look at the behavior and guess what the purpose was. And complex memes have to be transmitted like that, rather than by aping, which is a different process mediated by, what are they called, mirror neurons and that kind of thing. That will only do for very simple behaviors. And then there came a moment when our species was capable of explanatory knowledge, but they never used it for further tens or hundreds of thousands of years. They just use it for this meme transmission.
I'm still puzzled as to why you think it's so unlikely that the universe is not comprehensible. So take a simpler system, like the distribution of prime numbers. I'm quite sure I can't understand that, and even if various conjectures were proven or not proven, I think at the end of the day I still am not capable of understanding that, even how certain motors work, or the market for copper. So why can't that apply to the universe also?
Again, this is the wrong standard. That is true of everything. There's nothing that we can fully understand in that sense, in the sense that you want to fully understand prime numbers all the way up to infinity. That's not what we mean by understanding things, and that's not what I mean by the universe or mathematics being comprehensible. I mean that there is no barrier, there is no limit set by the universe, that so far you can go and no further. So we can understand things better. We can never understand things fully. And I think thinking that there is such a barrier is absolutely logically equivalent to believing in the supernatural. because everything that's past that barrier is just the same as it would be if Zeus reigned and determined what everything after that barrier is. And worse, the stuff outside the barrier, of course, is going to affect us, even if we can't understand it. So it's exactly the same as believing in a universe with supernatural beings who have it in for us because they've put up this wall that we can't cross. If they took down the wall, we could cross it, couldn't we?